Death Battle is a show that naturally involves lots of matchups. It is given since the main premise is two pistol carriers battling to the death. Naturally, since this is the case, you know there's gotta be a few stinkers here matchup-wise, so I wanted to make this video with the theme in mind, to see which matchup is truly the worst of the worst for each season. This is pretty self-explanatory, but when it comes to matchups, I need to look at their core theme and their fight potential, as that is what I prioritize over anything else. I will also be talking about honorable mentions when applicable, because yeah, I got a fair few matchups to discuss. With the basic guidelines set, it's time to begin the list. Yeah, the intro's really short this time. This video is really simple. Season 1 is way too easy to pick a matchup for, simply because of how different the matchup making process was back then. I mean, we got two singers on the show just because of how much people didn't like them. How in God's name did we even get to that point? But with this comes many honorable mentions. Justin vs. Rebecca would absolutely make anyone else's list, but for me, I just think its issues have been talked about enough to the point where I don't even need to mention it. And also because I kind of want to be a bit more original when it comes to these entries. I like supporting expectations, it's like one of my two redeeming character traits. There is also the TMNT Battle Royale, which had the funny word in it. Now, I have no problem with the word, because that's just me, and I have a few problems. No! I would not like to talk about it in therapy! I can't talk about it if I don't have it! But as a matchup, it's also really bad, since they wouldn't even fight in the first place. How in the hell was it even remotely considered for the rematch poll, bro? Yoshi vs. Riptor. Okay, look, I think this is kind of funny, but as a general matchup, I think we could all agree it's just not that good. It's like a Goro versus a champ situation, if you get me. And I'm kind of out of ideas of matchups I want to talk about, so I'm gonna go with the next best option. I wanted to talk about Starscream vs. Rainbow Dash for no other reason other than the production behind it. How does this even happen? So, let's begin. Production began when the proposition of My Little Pony coming on the show came up. Since this was early Death Battle where connections were considered but not the full front, the joke was that they made My Little Pony go against Transformers, because some brother and sister were arguing that the manly toys were better than the girly toys. Why haven't we been spied off of Earth yet? So the original idea that I mentioned was brought up by Jared Cronenberg. Forgive the poor German, because I'm in fact not German, which, yes, was the same dude who is pro-Jared. I didn't even know he worked at Square Attack until researching this entry, so the more you know, my good friends. And the original idea he mentioned was Megatron vs. Twilight Sparkle, which was shot down, not because the team instantly thought, no, this is a bit shit, but because they didn't have any connections. I'm sorry bro, but what were you expecting? So they quickly moved over to Starscream vs. Rainbow Dash, which I guess has the contrast of Starscream betraying Megatron every week compared to Rainbow Dash being literally loyalty as an element? Look, what more do you want from me? As for the episode associated with it, I mean, it's Season 1, even with a good episode back then, there isn't that much to go from. This is because the standards back then are much different than now. If you remember my review of Mario vs. Sonic 1, you know the quality difference is very jarring. However, even then, I got nothing to say. Nothing is really able to stick out besides the lack of a death. I mean, a Starscream return could be cool. Metalface is a cool opponent idea for Starscream. And Vile. And Ridley. Actually, that square in general is very good. But yeah, Rainbow Dash vs. Starscream is my choice for Season 1. Mainly because the other choices I would have picked would have been either too obvious or beaten to death, and I found the production element of this matchup really interesting. The rest just aren't that interesting to talk about in comparison, which is why I picked this matchup. Season 2 is still early Death Battle, as well as having more episodes than Season 1, so naturally there was a lot more for me to choose from when it comes to this section of the list. Let's see the honorable mentions that I have here right now. Guts vs. Nightmare is a matchup where the theme is based around extremely massive swords, and also has one of the funniest reasons to win to this very day. I mean, Guts does this every single day, is on par with the Golden Tree as one of the most memorable lines in Death Battle history. Doctor Doom vs. Darth Vader is just flat out what? They are dictators, everyone, we have created a new most wanted. And Boo vs. Kirby by today's standards is a bad matchup, but given that Kirby is very OP even back then, I'm not surprised they did a matchup with him as early as they did. So the episode I wanted to talk about is... where is it? Come on. Come on! Why would I work? Oh god, I broke it. Yeah, I can't get the episode for this. Fine, I'll just use the thumbnail. I'm too lazy for this entry. But yeah, the next episode I wanted to talk about was Batman vs. Captain America. I am not adding fucking Subway servers! But yeah, this one is just very boring to me. Both in terms of matchup, because there isn't much to go from here, Listen, when I need to insult something for content, I need it to be very interesting, but also because of the fact that the episode around it is such a duffing episode. Which, yes, it's just what I think. The episode is very boring, and I wasted 10 minutes of my life on the Rooster Teeth archive watching it. The only interesting thing I can mention is, like, the death, because, like, yeah, it's very out of character for Batman to even do this, as well as the fight taking place in the literal void. Like, I am so thankful there's another way to watch this episode that didn't involve pretty much throwing in the towel and mentioning why the matchup was boring and going on in my life. Oh yeah, I need to fix the remote. Give me a second, guys. Alright, the remote is fixed. Time to watch some more bad matchups they did. Oh goodness gracious! Season 3, just like most other seasons, isn't perfect when it comes to matchup roster. The quality of the episodes vary, but in general the overall quality of the matchups isn't perfect. It's basically hit or miss. The first example of this is Bowser vs. Ganon, which had a pretty decent episode besides the conclusion. Let's just not mention anything about that. But the overall matchup isn't really all that interesting, especially compared to something like Ganon vs. Dracula, which they later did in Season 6, and they're about to do Bowser vs. Eggman. So, there's that too, I guess. Amy Rose vs. Ramona Flowers is just a really boring matchup with nothing going for it, besides maybe bringing in Scott Pilgrim as a verse, even though nowadays people just want Scott himself. Which is really likely since most likely seems to be Scott Pistoia from Truly Cooley, which is my preference for Scott, so I'll actually take it. And then there's Deadpool vs. Pinkie Pie, which is really basic, features not that much interesting things going for it, and has a really easy to predict tie. But I kinda like 4-4 breaks, and I just don't really care for anything besides that. Sure, the episode kinda sucked, but I found the 4-4 stuff to be pretty interesting. Unfortunately, however, this is where the interesting things end. Because you aren't interesting! Now I know what you are probably not thinking, but image of the Uber Eats. Doesn't Flash have no good matchups? And the reason I'm saying this is because Flash really doesn't have decent matchups. My intrusive thoughts are right, Flash doesn't really have anything that's good. Now, this does not excuse how boring this matchup is, because the sweet, merciful, everything known to mankind, what in the ever-loving hell is these short-as-hell connections? Look, I'm not gonna ask much when it comes to Flash, because I'm gonna be real, his story is kinda unique in a sense where finding a connections-focused matchup is really hard to do. But limiting him to just Speedster is not the way to go, and the episode itself had a decent premise, where the fight was also raised at the same time. However, the double-T quickly fell away, and the running sections just became more and more dull where nothing is happening. Though I did like the section where they ran and fought at the same time. It was also fun to see this episode referenced during the first Flash vs. Goku Black in Season 8. And this also does end up fixing the death slightly, even if Flash's reaction was kind of out of character. I mean, what race is gonna end like this? Death race? I mean, that doesn't have an episode for a while, so, yeah. Season 4, thankfully for my video's runtime, has multiple options for me to choose from when it comes to bad matchups. For example, Venom vs. Bane. I kinda don't get it at all. Oh, we're comparing Breaking Bad to Mental Breakdown, so I might be dumb again. Metal Sonic vs. Zero, which, yeah, it's a sequel to another episode that I guess I already did, so I can see it, but besides that, just no. And also Lucario vs. Renamon, because, like, Digimon vs. Pokemon is so really a serious combination of all time. I feel like by that point it would have fallen off to the point where I feel like it wasn't needed on the show anymore. Besides, like, showing that some Pokemon could beat Digimon, I don't know else what it needs. But at least it wasn't the matchup 2 episodes prior, am I right? I'm right. What was the thought process behind this matchup? No, really. Normally you could go on the official Death Battle wiki and check the production section, which shows the connections and interesting tidbits on how a matchup gets confirmed on Death Battle. But the only thing this matchup has is that they just took the main connection of absorbing energy as being normal for 18 when it's just a Xenoverse thing. Bloody hell, how do we even get here? Just really hope that the connections that the wiki provided later are pretty boring in general. Actually, no wait, that lines up well with Captain Marvel now that I think about it. And just like Captain Marvel, the episode was not funny, the banter was not funny, the clips weren't funny, the Stones on the 18 weren't funny. I was never funny.
What? Surprise!
No, we are not.
Too.
No!
Oh, hey! I can do that too!
How did this episode predate a joke that would come out like 3 seasons late? Hey, not just a pot of bronze. I don't know about analogies. Episode overall left me with literally nothing to talk about besides the few things I just mentioned. I found everything else to be really bland and not interesting. So with all that out of the way, let's just move on to the next entry. I'm already out of things to discuss. Season 5! Yeah, I honestly don't have much to say about this season, honestly. When it comes to bad matchups this season doesn't really have much for me to pick. Like, there's only a few options that I can work with here. Mainly stuff like Cutters versus Lucy and Raven versus Twilight Sparkle. And everything else is really good, which is not something I care enough to make a full entry on. But we're ignoring this season's premiere episode! Wait a minute. Why is Batman here again? This goddamn stealer, get out of all my placements! I hate it here. So we got a second Batman matchup on this list, and it's also the first semis on the show. Not including the DBX, because I don't know when they started, nor do I even care enough to know. Yeah, I think in terms of thematics, this might be one of, if not the weakest in terms of themes, possibly tying Captain America. I just think they both have a lot more they could pull from other than superhuman, rich, and also they have no parents, LMAO. And to help, the episode is not, in fact, that interesting. I am beginning to notice a pattern here. Every episode just happens to be uninteresting so far. Well, I hope it keeps that way just for my sanity just to be stable. Please? Please? Oh, am I kidding? I know it won't happen. But you know, the little I have to mention about the actual episode comes with the track name for being the most stupid track name ever made. But just Battle at the Zoo! It's low-key peak. It's low-key peak. Should have been on the rematch just for that. And just like that, I'm already out of things to talk about. Shows aren't that easy to make, my good friends. Only I could do so much. Also, I really need to get a drink right now. Jesus Christ. Season 6 is a season where I once again just do not care for anything going on in terms of its bad matchups, because there really isn't enough for me to talk about when it comes to the very bad matchups. I mean, yeah, I can still name a few. I mean, who the hell really wanted Captain Marvel back? Because it wasn't me. Mask vs. Deadpool was a choice. I mean, yeah, it certainly was one. I'll give it that. And Ben 10 vs. Green Lantern being on the rematch poll is the only reason I mentioned this matchup in the video. And no, I'm not going to show the funny lie, simply because I think it would be funny if I didn't. I hate you all. So in the end, the matchup I'm going to go with is... Wait, why is this here? Isn't this a Season 7 episode? Let me check here. What? It's not? Oh, what the British? When I say this is like a Season 7 episode, I do not mean that in a good way. But that will be mentioned in 2 minutes, because if you watch my Kickstarter Voice video where I mentioned that I dislike most of the matches because of my sheer Britishness, you know that I don't like ignoring Anna's character, because yes, despite me not caring for Avatar at all, I would imagine to go into a character at minimum. Because that's what matchups should do, no duh. So yes, Aang's really getting weighted twice here. Once then, and soon. Oh wait, I meant to talk about why I dislike the matchup itself. I find the lack of Alphonse Elric in the connections to be pretty bad. Wait 1 second, they want to do Aang versus Harry Potter? Oh bloody hell, what do you even talk about when it comes to the episode? Yeah, I don't even need to mention the episode, because the reason I thought it was Season 7 for so long is because the plots just lined up more with that season more than anything related to Season 6. Mainly with the fight not being that exhilarating, the animation, though good, is nothing to write home about, and the characterization being far from the best. Edward, being 5'2" is not that big of a deal. I'm 5'2", you'll be fine, mate. And obviously there's the whole spare the tyrant who wanted to kill many people, but killing a dude who you didn't even mean to anger is just a justified thing. Come on, I can't make any new ground of this. Really, this is just overall a big mess of an episode. I think it's best if we continue pretending it doesn't exist. Season 7 has too many to choose from, mainly because the matchups here were just... okay, some of these are just blatantly confusing. Like, Black Canary versus Sindel. It would have made the list if the Shao Kahn and Green Arrow comparison wasn't extremely funny. It's the funniest thing I've seen in a hot minute. But then you have other matchups like Genos versus War Machine, or Grey versus Esdeath. The 7 Battle Royale if it counts. And the entry I'm going to be talking about. What? What a shocker that the worst episode this season just happened to be the worst matchup too, ain't that just swell? Well, look at me. The answer as to why this matchup sucks is really easy for me. This matchup is if you take Batman versus Spider-Man, but you make them girls. Yeah, end it there, bro. We got nothing else to talk about the matchup. I mean, yeah, you can also see that about other boring stuff about Batman versus Spiders, but I've also seen it for, like, Arkham vs. Insomniac, which is wrong, because it's definitely fun if you keep most of the arsenal. Now, if you want a bad one, we can talk about... oh, wait, no, I need to talk about actually bad things. I need to stop getting sidetracked. Come on, YouTuber. Yeah, I already went through how the matchup itself was bad. I don't want to review the episode, no thanks. no. Why are you making me watch it? I don't know if I need to explain how bad the episode is, because, like, how many other people have done that before me? I can guarantee you, I could watch, like, 3 rankings of Season 7, and I will tell you, this episode will be in last place for all 3 of them. I did that just before writing, and guess what? I was right. I love being correct, it really inflates my ego. I mean, I could talk about how we already had Miles and Venom before Gwen, and Red Hood is from the bad family. I got nothing else, bro, just get me off this entry, please. Season 8 has very few options for me to pick when it comes to bad matchups. However, I have a few because I am simply using my brain. In other words, I just picked a few options that I found to be a bit boring, which, if I add the 2, carry the 7, times that by 5, divided by 9, that should be 3 honorable mentions. Alright, all of them fall under the same reason, so that's why Shao Kahn vs Akuba and Blake vs Mikasa hit this spot together, because I found the matchups to be kinda boring. Batman vs Iron Man would have made the list, but because Batman has already been on this list twice, and Batgirl would technically make it 3 times, and I'm sorry, but that's just way too many times we talk about bats. I know it's October, but damn bro, I do not need to talk about bats this goddamn often. So, where does this end with? Honestly, I'll just go with the most boring out of the 4 that I have in front of me, which is this one right here. I don't really know what to say about this matchup that I could say about the other ones I mentioned before. I just think this is probably the least interesting out of the list in terms of general preference, since as franchises, I just don't care much for Avatar or X-Men. It's just an overall matchup of all time to me. I don't really care for the connections since they're overall very boring. I do have a faint connection of them apparently being racy, but like, I am in no way qualified to talk about that. I am pale as shit. I don't know much about race other than the basic don't be a racist. If it is racy, I'd like to hear an explanation in the comments, but at the same time, I could just be bluffing and misremembering things. I have no way to measure it. I'm really pale, and I'm usually the kind of guy who's really into controversies, so I'd like to hear more about it in the comments. Speaking of controversies, there was apparently potential for Korra vs. Rey from Star Wars, but because the sequels were the sequels, they held off from it. It's not the worst Star Wars we've got in recent years. Alright, let me shut up, that show thankfully got cancelled. The episode itself was fine. It was honestly kind of fun at points as well. I like the little flip that Korra did, the episode in general was mostly well animated and looks cool, and the general fight we see is overall very interesting. Until the whole whatever this is, I don't know what the hell is happening here. Oh, hello Campus Man. And best of all, despite the fact that the stomp was pretty much expected from everyone, the episode did not take a hit from that at all. Besides the death, it was honestly kind of boring. All in all, a fairly entertaining episode that, despite how much I could not care for the characters if I tried, it's still really good, but the series just don't do anything for me. And overall, I just don't really care for the matchup despite how good the episode is. Congrats, Season 9, you have a pretty decent roster. But if I don't say any honorable mentions here, the entire fandom comments the dislike of... There's gonna be a lot of matches they're gonna comment about, but so, Omni-Man vs. Homelander is absolutely a choice because of how much it ignores characters, but there's just one teensy-eensy, ever so slightly crucial, but ever so important, more important than solving world hunger issue that I have. Omni-Man's spread is fixing my sleep schedule with how little shit I give. Insert what I just said and put it with Bond vs. Whip. Thanks. Save me editing a whole section in this video that'll last like 2 seconds. Jason vs. Michael, it's because I don't like slasher films. Please do not shoot me. Oh god, the FBI found me. Y'all, I'm done. The group chat got leaked. And something about Deku vs. Asa having better options for both. I don't know. I'm too lazy to write an entry about My Hero Academia without insulting the fan base somehow. So I'm gonna go with the next best option I have, because I'm out of matchups, so this one is just gonna be this. Yeah. But Ibuchuba, you British thing. Isn't this matchup the most iconic save series matchup? Correct, random user. It's about on par as Ash vs. Red in terms of popularity. And I dislike both. Glad we got that cleared up, my friend's benefits. But yeah, this is just very boring to me to a major degree. I could not care at all about this matchup. See, the reason why this one ranks above the rest is just how little I feel about it. The fact this is the same series matchup with a power confirmed winner, I don't know about how true that is. I know too little about Dragon Ball. So that just puts a massive point against it if it's true. The episode is obviously no better. It is just super boring with nothing interesting for me to talk about. Like, yeah, this really is an episode of all time. I could not care. I'm just Well, God, seems so hard to get around here. The episode makes more perfectly good lullaby to sleep after installing before living. What jokes can I make? Nope, I'll get the nerds after me. No, they'll get Twitter on my ass. I'm not no-stacking because I'm actually funny, so no. This is shit. I can't make any entries about jokes, so, I fell off, guys. I fell off. Nah, I'll just move to the next entry because I feel like it. Bye. Season 10 hasn't got many options to some bad matchups. A lot here are generally okay or just mid at worst. There is only one matchup that I would consider bad in this season. And it's also the only episode that I dislike in this season. What's in the episode? Well, what did you get with the watch party? 4 out of 10. A 4 out of 10? Holy shit, I was in on this matchup back in the day. Nowadays it's a 2 out of 10. Alright, so I find this match to be the most boring of the lot by a landslide. Like, sure, this wasn't the worst place to put a Marvel vs. DC episode, as we found out a few episodes later, but that doesn't mean I find this one to be less boring. It sticks out the least to me, both as a matchup and as an episode. I could give Martian Manhunter vs. Silver Surfer some credit. At least the episode maybe gave the slightest fuck for both of the characters outside of one thing about them. It's actually a lot better than that. Martian Manhunter unironically had one of the best downsides this season. Phoenix vs. Raven is just the biggest nothing burger. Did people even want this? I mean, I don't know. I didn't because I didn't know Phoenix even bloody existed. And I didn't go with anything Marvel, I just don't care for Raven. Goth women are cool and all, but I just don't care for Raven whatsoever. Like, there is so little to talk about here in terms of the matchup. And the episode itself was... God, I remember nothing from it besides the very boring Galactus of Death, Forever will make an absolute bop, and... we are not doing this joke again! And the rest just doesn't exist in my brain. This episode wasn't even real. It's an illusion. You're in a dream. Darkrai wants to eat your dreams. Wake up, bro. But obviously, all these are my personal opinion. Depending on what you think, your matchup list could be very different compared to mine. Hell, you might have a matchup that everyone else likes, but you dislike. I mean, I had that with Jason vs. Michael. So, yeah, anything could happen, I'll just say that. So be sure to tell me your thoughts in the comments below. Subscribe while you're there too, please. It will be amazing. And thank you for watching.